I'm Beth Capes. I'm based here in Cleveland, Ohio, and I've had my own company, Moving Words into Action, for over 20 years, actually, serving B2B clients around the country and sometimes globally. A lot of fun. So I'm thrilled to be here. It's my third CEX, and I am very excited to announce our next speaker, Austin. I'm going to say your name wrong, I'm sure. Austin Church, here he is. I'm going to get to the page. I apologize, Austin. I've been up here all day. He's a writer, marketing consultant, and business coach. He started freelancing in 2009 after finishing his MA in literature and getting laid off from a marketing agency. And here he is. 15 years later, he's doing quite a bit to help all of us as content entrepreneurs. We will have time for a Q&A, and Austin does have a special treat for anyone who is brave enough to ask a question. So just keep that in mind. And without further ado, please welcome Austin Church to the stage.
Can you all hear me okay? Great. Okay, to get the fun started, raise your hand if you sell some kind of service as a freelancer, consultant, coach, owner of an agency, that sort of thing. Okay, that's a lot of you. Do you have a content side of your business? Some of you? Okay, the next question, if you will be brave and let me know, how many of you have an audience but it's currently too small to support you financially? Like all the way. Maybe a little bit, but not all the way. Okay. How many of you would like to spend more time on the content side of your business? Maybe that's even where your heart is, like connecting with those people you like a little bit more than connecting with people on the service side. Okay, so that's what I call the in the meantime problem. A lot of us need to get paid. We need to support ourselves. We have service businesses that earn our livelihood, but this is where our heart is, or this is where we think we want to go next. Audience isn't big enough to support us yet. Meanwhile, like building the audience just takes time, takes patience, right? So, should have probably advanced to my first slide. So how do you get yourself paid in the meantime? That's what I want to talk about today. Two specific things. Number one, optimizing your prices on the service side so that you're able to make more money in less time, which in turn frees up more time to spend on the content side. And then, okay, over here on the content side, the second thing I want to talk about is creating an advice offer that you can sell to your audience and better monetize the audience. And I know that sounds crass and crude and all the things, like people don't really want to be monetized, but stick with me. How do you make a little bit more money over on the content side even while your audience is small? Okay. I want to tell a story which involves a mistake that I made when I was trying to earn money on the content side. That's how we'll start. So this is the District Coffee House. It's in Boise, Idaho, 2019. I'm sitting at that table, and I'm like, okay, I'm finally going to make my course. I've heard about courses. Apparently, this solves every problem you'll ever have. And so I want to solve my problem, so I'm going to make a course. So I finally got serious. I committed. And that was June 2019. And so for 6 months, I'm staying up late. I'm creating my outlines. I'm writing my transcripts. I'm recording audio. If you've ever recorded audio at night, you know what kind of special torture it is to listen to your own voice. And then it got worse because then I had to edit that audio and I had all the ums and ahs and stuff to take out. So December 2019, when I finally finished this course, I've written emails, I launched the thing. Here's how much time I put into creating my course. And that was okay because I had a 1.5% conversion rate, which isn't bad, right? Like that's pretty good. If you know anything about selling products to your audience, like 1.5% isn't bad. And so when I looked at that number, I could say, wow, this launch was a success. The problem was I had 637 email subscribers. So even with a fantastic conversion rate, all things considered, I'd sunk 250 hours into a course that got me 10 sales, which made my hourly rate $8.89 an hour. Now, I made 3 times that amount as a 12-year-old selling fireworks underneath a striped circus tent in Middle Tennessee, right? Could sell the crap out of some fireworks. So this was disheartening, right? Because I actually was doing pretty well on the consulting side. And so I'm like, I have this business over here that's viable. I'm making good money over here. It's really hard for me to rationalize spending more time on the content side. And then I get an email from Kristen. And Kristen tells me that my course has changed her life and it's transformed her business. And now I'm like, I want to keep going with this content thing because that's what got me into it in the first place. Like connecting with my people and using my experience and specifically my mistakes and failures to help and especially avoid pitfalls and mistakes, right? And so that's what my course was about, is like I'd like to help, especially people who are a little bit different than me, do better, avoid the mistakes, make more money, right? So how do I stay in the game long enough to help more people, the people I really want to help? I don't know if that resonates with you all, where you make a piece of content, or maybe it was a digital product, it's something that you made, and it made a material difference in someone's life, and you want to keep going, because that's more fulfilling sometimes than like copywriting or some of the things I've done on the freelance side, right? So that brings us back to the in the meantime problem, right? We need to make money to pay the utility bill, but I really just want to be connecting with people at a heart level and participating in their transformation. I had a conversation with a guy named Will Schroeder once, and he said something that was really interesting to me that kind of sums up the problem, right? Startups don't go out of business, founders do. So how do we get ourselves paid in the meantime? I want to talk to you about a couple of pieces of a framework I have. I want to start with pricing. We'll get to the advice offer here in a second, okay? But I want you all to take some time later, and probably don't have time now, to identify 7 numbers. I'm going to touch on each one of these. It will be fairly fast. You can buy my book. It's like $14 or something. It's not an expensive book. The step-by-step process is the very first part of the book. So for those of you who just want to sit down with the process and go through it step-by-step, that's the way I recommend. But I just want to explain the paradigm or the methodology here. Okay, so the number that you start with when you want to create or set prices, calculate prices, that can free you up to spend more time on the content side, right? First number, survival number. How much does my life cost? And this is just a very practical, honest, all judgment withheld exercise that you go through to figure out, okay, how much are we spending on personal expenses? What about business expenses? Approximately how much do we spend on taxes each month? And then you multiply that times 12 and you get your annual number, right? Your survival number. So Kristen, how much is Kristen spending? What does her life cost? Tax percentage, right around 30%. That means that on business and living expenses, she's spending about $5,000 a month. That means pre-tax or gross revenue, $7,142 a month. So Kristen needs $85,800 a year. Value judgments withheld. Maybe Kristen could cut spending. I don't know. But right now, this is what her life costs, right? This is a really good place to start when you're calculating your prices, because other people have very different living expenses than you do. I have 3 young children. Having children is like expanding the surface area on the things that can go wrong. And then like the associated accidents and expenses. We also have 2 cats. One of them got into some kind of kerfuffle last Monday, and so it's bing, $605, right? So whether it's pets or whether it's children or maybe you're taking care of an aging parent, whatever it is, right? Your life costs a different amount of money each month than some close competitors. So that's why your prices can't just be reactive. You can't just look around and say, well, what are other people charging? They may have very different numbers. Okay, next one, and I think this is the one that probably trips the most service providers, freelancers, consultants, agency owners, coaches. This is the one that trips us up the most. So you're not going to work every week, every year. And then even when you work during a week, you're not going to work every waking hour. So what's an average work week for you, right? Then within that average work week, you're not going to bill every hour that you work to a client. You know, you'll answer emails, you'll read someone's newsletter, ideally Jay Klaus's Creator Science newsletter. You will cook, you will do discovery calls with clients, right? You'll work on your own business ops and admin. You can't just turn around and bill all that time to a client, and so if you start charging based on a 40-hour work week, your numbers are wonky from the beginning, so you have to think through effectiveness, like what percentage of the hours that I work can I realistically bill to a client? So in Kristen's case, she's got a pretty good effectiveness. It's like right at 60%. So if she's out of office 5 weeks out of the year, she works on average 40 hours a week. She's got that 60% effectiveness. 47 weeks times 40 hours a week times 60%. And again, that 60% or 0.60, that's huge. Like that's where you get a realistic estimate of your time inventory across a year that you can realistically bill for, right? So next up comes a really simple calculation for, okay, I've got my survival number and I've got my true availability. When I divide the one into the other, you can come up with your survival rate. So in Kristen's case, $85,800 a year, her true availability or time inventory that she can bill for, 1,128 hours, that gives her a survival rate of $76 per hour. And what I mean by survival rate is if she averages out all of her billable hours across a year, she can't make less, she can't average less than 76 per hour, or she'll get herself into financial trouble, right? I'm not advocating that you charge hourly, so let me be very, very clear on that. I'm saying that like after the smoke clears and you finish up like a consulting engagement or a freelance project, and you're like, here's how much time I put in, here's how much time I charge, like here's what I charged, like the flat fee. What was my effective hourly rate? So your effective hourly rate across a year, Kristen's effective hourly rate across a year, needs to be more than 76 an hour, or she's spending more than she's earning, right? That causes problems. You all are smart people, you get this. How many of us got into business to just scrape by? There are things that matter to us more, which is why we are on the independent path, many of us. There are things that matter to us more than strictly surviving. There is not a company I know of that would have given me the raises I've been able to give myself over the years by becoming a better entrepreneur. I don't want to just survive, I want to thrive. I want freedom and I want the financial upside, right? So we've got to keep going. We've got to push to the next number. The next number is the dream number, right? So I bet if I sat down with each one of you, you could all tell me what you would do like right now with an extra $5,000 or 10 or 15 or whatever, right? Like elective medical procedure, or help your niece out with college tuition, or tell your partner to quit her job. You know, it's probably not buying a Lamborghini for most of you, right? Maybe it's going to Disney World yet again, right? Sorry. But there is an extra amount of money every year that when you picture what truly thriving would look like, there's like a little price tag floating out next to it, and that's what thriving looks like for you. And it's different for each one of us, right? For me, it means a little more time away from my children. Merely joking. No. So I think for a lot of us, it really does mean more time on the content side of the business. If you're able to make more money in less time, you free up time to do the work that doesn't feel like work. For years, I wanted to write books. And I always told myself, well, you have to wait. I'm the primary breadwinner in a family of 5, so being Mr. Responsible, making the money, whatever. But when I started optimizing my prices and I was able to make the money my family needs in less time, I could finally finish my book, right? So whatever the extra amount of money is for you, whether it's, I'm going to finish my book, or it's some of the other things I mentioned, becoming debt-free, whatever, there is a price tag you could put to what truly thriving looks like. So for Kristen, she was starting at an extra $20K a year. So suddenly her dream number becomes $105,800. She divides the same true availability into that, right? Now she's at $94 an hour. So if she starts to average that across her projects, then now what happens? She's making definitive progress toward her long-term lifestyle and financial goals, right? So this is all great, right? Wouldn't it be wonderful if it stopped there? How many of you have had projects that didn't go according to plan, right? How many of you have had a client that needed that one extra call? It's a little more hand-holding, right? How many of you have had a client where somehow it became business therapy? Business therapy. Yes. Hand there in the front, right? Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. What do scopes do? They creep. What do projects do? They evolve. And so one of my big breakthroughs is I've been way too optimistic in thinking that if I just calculated the number of hours I expected to put into a project and then had my dream rate and multiplied those two together, then voila, that's the price. Except something always changes. And so I let my anxiety, develop a nice little principle called pessimistic pricing. And so it's simple. All you do is add a 20% cushion. And I know that there are situations where the scope creep is kind of, it's bigger than, it's egregious. It's like, hey, you've actually totally changed the project and you can't get what you're now wanting at the original price. Yes, open a new invoice by all means, charge them for the extra. But sometimes for the sake of preserving the relationship, when they ask for that little 15-minute favor or whatever, you don't want to open a new invoice. So what if you've already just built the cushion into the price, right? So budget an extra 20% for bad behavior, and you can call it a pessimistic price. So Kristen's a freelance writer. One of the main projects that she does, long-form narrative case studies. She estimated that one of these will take 13 hours. When she multiplies that 13 times her dream rate, which is $94 an hour, she gets $1,222. Then she multiplies that number times 1.2 to give that 20% cushion. She ends up with 1,466. So there's one more number I want to show you that I think is fun. So maybe you'll think it's fun too. Okay. How many of you have read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss? Former FBI hostage negotiator. And he said something that just like hit me right between the eyes in the book, that when he was in these negotiation situations, if he, and some bad actor who kidnapped someone is saying, hey, we want this amount of money from you. And he discovered that if he came back with a really weird number that seemed so precise, like how could it possibly be arbitrary, then the person on the other side would be like, well, I probably can't push back a whole lot on that. So hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying manipulate anyone. I'm not saying always try to get more money if you can. I am saying that weirdly precise numbers are more believable. They seem like you arrived at them through a logical process. And in Kristen's case, she did. Right? So 1466 is a weirdly precise number. I would recommend that she just stick with that one. But if you do your calculations with your dream rate and you end up with zeros, it's pretty easy. Just change the zeros to like 7, 5, just a weird number. Ideally a little bit higher, right? And there's one more thing, because like when I first started like teaching this, I would get a little pushback because it's like, well, what if that cost me the project? And I'll just say, across all of my own experience and people I've talked to who've started to try this, I've never talked to one person that if they slightly raised the price and made it weirdly precise, the extra $66 or $75 or whatever was enough to cost them the project. Like most people, if they're willing to pay $500, will pay $575. Or if they were willing to pay $10,000, would pay $10,125. So I bet your experience will be pretty similar to mine. If it's not, come back and talk to me. We'll come up with a new plan, right? But this is just a fun little tactic to say, hey, I bet I can make these tiny incremental bumps to my prices. It's probably not going to be enough to cost me a client, but when you add up those tiny incremental bumps across 12 months, that can represent like a meaningful increase that could like make a big difference for you and your family, okay? Now, it is okay if after you calculate your dream rate and then you use your dream rate to set your new prices, it's okay if you don't get that dream rate for every single project right out of the gate, right? You may need to consider some little pivots in your business. Like from time to time, I've guided people through these exercises and it's like, well, none of my current clients is gonna pay that. And like we might talk about that and realize, well, you need to find a new target audience who places a higher value on the work you do and the outcomes you deliver, right? So just keep that in mind, that I've found it incredibly energizing to identify a dream rate. And I'm going to go off script for a second. I've found that we're all better at advocating for ourselves when we have an emotional attachment to the outcome. So if you know what an extra, whether it's a small or large amount of money means for you and your family, you will be better at self-advocacy. But if the number really was arbitrary for you, like you just kind of picked it out of thin air, or you're doing what all the other freelancers in your space are doing, yeah, it's no surprise that our belief in those prices is actually pretty wobbly. And so when someone pushes back, it's like, okay, whatever you think. You know, you show them your belly like our cats, like you're in charge. So the goal here is to stay above your survival rate, and over time, be patient, trust the process, and just with every project, try to get closer and closer to that dream rate. And every time you get closer to that dream rate, you'll feel it, like you'll feel the momentum, because you're like, that project is moving my business forward definitively, right? I sometimes call this pricing for life. Like, how much does your life cost? How much does the life you really want cost? Every project that moves you closer to the life you really want, you can feel that. So these are the numbers, right? Plug for the book. I'm going to pause and let you all raise your phones and pretend that you're scanning this QR code. No, we'll move on. Okay, so I told you there was going to be one more thing I wanted to cover. This is the other way that ideally you can get paid in the meantime, right? And it's putting an advice offer in front of your audience, even if it's small. Okay, let me circle back around. What was the problem with my course? It's not that it was a course. Courses are wonderful. Courses are a great business model if you have a really large audience. My mistake was that I had a small audience and a low-priced product so that even if I had a great conversion rate, all the math was working against me and it wasn't going to add up to like a meaningful replacement for, I can't now say no to like a consulting engagement because look at all this money I'm making over here. Right now I was making $8.89 an hour over here. So I do want to just clarify that. Like, it's not that inexpensive products are bad. It's just that I think if you still have a small audience, they're less strategic than one-on-one consulting. So this is my friend Derek Sivers. No, this is Jay Clough. But I was like delighted. I mean, this wasn't that long ago. This was maybe 2 weeks ago. I forget. But he was like, hey, if I had it to do all over again, like what order would I build my creator business in? And notice that he was like, hey, I think that digital products would probably come after one-on-one consulting. So my advice would be to turn your content into a service by selling advice. Okay? If you want some inspiration, there are so many different ways that you can package up your advice. So many. I guarantee that one of the ones in this list of 26 will be like, yep, like I really like that idea. So by all means, go get the inspiration, but I'm going to recommend 2 very specific ones, if only because they've been effective for me. You can decide whether or not you think the ones I'm going to recommend are most strategic for you. All right, so if I had my druthers, and by saying that word, I'm becoming my mother. No one says druthers. You would have a one-off strategy session. Then you would have a high-ticket, one-on-one coaching program or consulting engagement. Ideally, you have both. Notice the word premium. These are not going to be inexpensive. So you're like, okay, but I don't necessarily have a program. I don't have a consulting engagement that would be high ticket. Okay, here's a simple process that you can use to start kind of architecting a program. What are my 10 most popular pieces of content? Like, how are people engaging with me? What do they like? What does my audience want? And how are they voting with their attention, right? So find the top 10. Then each of those pieces of content, you say, why? Like, why did this resonate? And then you start to look at, like, okay, what discrete or smaller problems are represented here? Like, what small problems am I helping people solve? And then you think, well, in an ideal situation, or if I got to lead someone through a transformation one-on-one, in what order would I solve those problems with them, right? Because you probably have enough expertise already on the content and audience side that you're like, hey, if you're going to coach or consult with someone toward an outcome, you're like, oh, don't do that first. Do this first instead, right? So those smaller problems are probably like little moons. They're probably orbiting a bigger planet problem. So once you've sort of thought through the satellites, think more about the planet. Like, what's the bigger problem that you can solve for them? And what you're talking about here is like a path to transformation. So your audience is telling you what they want more of, by which pieces of your content they've really liked. There's almost always, there are insights buried there that if you were to pull out those insights, you're like, here's the transformation that it seems like a lot of people want. And if I can help them solve these smaller problems, I can like precipitate this bigger transformation for them. And I would recommend that you build your program around that. This is where things get interesting, right? Because, you might have heard some creators say, like, keep your hand out of other people's pockets. Don't assume you know how much money people have or how much they will spend on a program. I've often been wrong and have been surprised when I put offers out there. People may surprise you and say, oh, I'd love to have your high-ticket program. And what if you had never even put it out there? What if you'd never even offered it? So a better question, I think, is like, what would selling maybe just a handful, maybe just one, what would that mean on the content side of your business and for your business as a whole? If you were to sell a high-ticket program once or twice or a handful of times every year, I can tell you it has meant a lot for my content business. It has been very validating. It has been very fulfilling, because if you help people get that outcome, you get that email, you have your own set of Kristens. Oh, it's like I'm like a Disney princess hopping out of bed, like singing. I have 3 high-ticket offers that I sell. I shouldn't say high ticket, I should say premium, higher priced, right? So this is what I'm doing. This is the path that I'm on. This is what's working for me right now. I'll do one-off clarity sessions, right? So these are my strategy calls. Sometimes I'll do like a slightly less expensive workshop, and I recognize that that's a digital product, kind of. It's also just a different way to package up advice. And finally, high-ticket signature program, right? Mine is called Business Redesign. So, typically here's where the pushback comes, and it's like, well, I don't know how to sell this. And I would say, keep it basic. Like, you all have already learned how to do harder things than sell a high-ticket coaching program or consulting package. You're more than capable of doing this. But if you haven't done this before, it's like anything else. You just try to keep it simple at the beginning, right? So what would I recommend? Well, first of all, create the offer. Then you publish posts about the offer. Like, people can't care if they don't know, so you need to build some awareness about it. Make sure some of those posts have a call to action, like invite people to schedule a free strategy call or discovery call with you. And then once you hop on the call, you can help them get clarity. You can tell them about the program. You can ask them if they want to move forward. It doesn't have to be high pressure, no arm twisting. And some of them will say yes. And you'll have to be careful to not like jump out of your skin and act as surprised as you'll feel, and then you'll have to be like, oh crap, how am I actually going to deliver this thing now? And that's for a talk at another time, right? Like, how do you actually deliver a coaching program? But if they say no to the high ticket coaching program or consulting package, then you downsell them to like a one-on-one strategy session. Okay, great. What do you think about just a one-off call to help you get some clarity, right? There are other ways to build awareness for offers you come up with. I'm not going to read my slides. My least favorite professors always read their slides, so you're welcome to take a screenshot of this. I will pause and take a sip of water. If you don't have a good framework for creating an advice offer, I have a free worksheet here that I probably spent 20 or 30 hours creating. So this will just help you organize your thoughts, and then there's actually a framework at the top for coming up with some of the messaging too. So if you don't feel confident in your own ability to just create an advice offer from scratch, just do that. You don't have to overthink it. Okay. We are almost finished. I think you can solve the in the meantime problem, right? You have the service business over here. Optimize your prices there first. Like, make more money in less time, and then you'll have that time to spend on the content side, right? Or not work at all, or travel 6 months out of the year. It can only serve you to optimize your prices if you sell a service, right? I think it also makes sense if you do have an audience to sell something high ticket to them. The worst that can happen is nothing, but again, if you put it out there, don't be surprised when somebody takes you up on it. Build a simple funnel, like just have a way to sell that high ticket program, and then you can buy yourself time to stay in the content game. If you had told me how much time it was going to take to build an audience, I don't think I ever would have started. Patience is not my strong suit. But I've found that if my family's needs are being taken care of, that is a surprising enabler of patience, right? So if I can just stay in the game and I get enough positive signals that my content and workshops and some of the other little things I do, this is making a material difference in people's lives. If I just get those positive signals, I'm like, all right, this is worth it. I'm going to keep going, right? So I love one-on-one coaching. If you're interested in doing something like that with me, come find me. If you aren't, that's okay. Still go buy the book, because I know this is a plug. I have self-awareness covers all manner of ills, right? You spent money, you invested money to come here, and raising your prices or otherwise making them more strategic is a really great way to get ROI on this conference, right? So if you're here and you're a service provider, buy the book, set smart strategic prices, and you can thank Joe and Matt later, right? That's it. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, Austin, so much. Loved
welcome.
it. Any questions? Okay, she was first, so I'm gonna run over there really fast. It's a good exercise.
Thank you. Great presentation, Austin. You did a great job. I told Austin this last year, and I'm just going to say it again, but I took his advice and I put my pricing on my website. And I think that is one of the best pieces of advice, really. And I was afraid to do it at first, but the thing is when you do that, you're being very transparent, and you're also separating those that are interested versus those kicking the tires.
Yeah.
So that was a really good piece of advice. Regarding your pricing points that you were saying, a weirdly precise number, I was just curious if you've ever tested the numbers 79, 97, or 99 at the end. Because I know that's a copywriting thing. I've done it, also, but I didn't know if you've ever done that with your other high ticket pricing or anything like that.
I've done it. I think it's done so much now that it actually reinforces the idea that it's an arbitrary number. So if you were to charge $63 instead of $79, 63 is so weird. Why would anyone ever charge $63 for something? So especially if you're talking about consulting or coaching or a freelance project, I would not go with 99 or 79. I would make it more precise or make it unusual.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm coming over. Who was first?
You all are so quiet. I know. Let's do the wave. No. Thank you, sir.
So with the free discovery call, I offered this for a while and I had a lot of no-shows. Mm-hmm. Is this just a thing you need to worry about? Is it something worse? My offer's not good enough to even get a free call? What's your take on that?
I'm not sure I have good advice on that. I haven't really had a problem with no-shows.
So it's me, is what you're saying?
Yeah. I would say that Joe, you're the problem here. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to talk about that later and unpack it a little bit because I think it's also a good idea to play around with the length of discovery calls, because it may be 15 minutes would be better than 45, or 25 minutes would be better than 30. I'm a tinkerer, so I would just keep playing around with that. I don't think discovery calls themselves are a poor strategy. So it's like, if I know that something tends to be an effective way of building rapport and ultimately moving potential clients toward a decision, and that effective strategy isn't working for me, I just try to be really curious and say why, and change things up until I get better results. But I'm happy to talk about that later. You're welcome.
Okay, I think we have, you were next.
I wanted to quickly say to you, I do discovery calls. I'm a website designer, and prior to the call, I send them information that gets them thinking about what's going to happen in the call, and I don't have any no-shows. And I was curious if you ever have played around with, like I call it gimmicky pricing, where say you're offering something for the price of the year, so 2024, whatever that is. Have you ever done anything like that?
I can't say that I have. And I think in this situation, I'm not sure what I would put a gimmicky price on. I think if it were digital products, that can work well, like to have something that's $7 that is a tripwire product that is meant to help you earn back quickly whatever you're spending on ads. But it's harder for me to think that would be effective on the consulting, freelancing agency side. That being said, if you're able to productize something and make it super efficient and you're able to deliver a great outcome very, very quickly, try it. That's kind of my approach on everything, is be the mad scientist in the laboratory performing experiments. It's worth trying once to see if you get the results you want, or at least maybe even try multiple times, but try it, see what happens.
Hi, Austin.
Hi, Becky.
I just told Jay that you're my favorite person to follow on LinkedIn. So
Thank
if
you.
you guys don't follow him, go follow him. My question is about, I'm wondering your thoughts on demand-based pricing. So, for example, I'm very at capacity right now with my services, and as you know, I'm starting to scale that. But now I'm when somebody comes in and I'm excited to work with them, or I want to get them on the schedule, because I'm full, does it make sense to raise the price? Yeah, demand-based pricing, what do you think?
Yes. Yeah. So if you have a queue of people waiting to work with you, you have all the leverage. And so, you might bump up your prices 10%, 20%. Another thing that I think can help people be more patient and wait for their chance to work with you is if they pay a deposit and then you guarantee them a start date. And then maybe you give them some pre-work, or you book out a day to do some sort of strategy, road mapping, planning, or whatever. So we all know that sometimes, even if it's all right, we're going to start on July 1, maybe you don't even really get into the real work of the project until late July, because there's all this other stuff you have to do on the front end. So it might be worth looking into your onboarding process and see if there are things that you can automate there while also maintaining a terrific client experience, to say, yeah, we're going to get you started. We need you to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and this. And then by the time they even finish, your production queue has opened up. And so they're like, all right, I'm ready to get started. And secretly you're like, I am too, So again, I would play around with it, but don't assume that the timeline the client gives you is always the timeline, the final timeline. Sometimes if you have really built your authority, they want to work with you, not with someone else. And so that gives you more wiggle room. I hope that helps.
Anyone else?
I just want to touch base actually on your question there. I've ran into that problem myself, and I've realized that raising the prices might lose some clients that I have But with the raised prices, I'm not losing money, and it's opening up more space for newer clients willing to pay the higher price.
1,000% that.
Latasha, do you still have a question? I'm curious.
Thank you. I was just curious about value-based pricing, or like we kind of did a simple calculation, just some simple math, which I think is a great place to start. But do you charge different rates for different things?
100%.
You know?
So there are 7 pricing models, and I mean, shoot, if I could keep you all here for an hour and a half, we could do a deep dive. Latasha mentioned value-based pricing. I think that's where we all want to end up, where if you build your authority and you have great positioning and you've got some very clear case studies, success stories, results, a lot of clients have a lot of money that they're willing to spend. They don't care how long it takes you, and if the value of the outcome is $250,000, maybe they will pay you $80K or $100K or whatever. So value pricing is where I think we all want to end up. And the reason I didn't go into it, I go into it in the book, but I didn't go into it here because honestly, I think it takes time for our confidence to catch up with our capability. So I could probably get to know each one of you and be like, you deserve and you are capable of so much more than you're currently charging, but you need to incrementally raise your confidence out there in the market, and then eventually you'll get to that point where you're like, I'm going to exclusively do value-based pricing. So, you know, it kind of grinds my gears when experts will give advice but not talk about how our limiting beliefs, our family circumstances, all these extenuating factors can change one person's results over another person's results. And so I bet each of you could do the value-based pricing thing like right away, especially if you were given the right methodology for it. But, you know, may take a little bit of time for your confidence to get there. I can tell you right now that you're worth it.
And that's all the time we have. But this is wonderful, Austin. Thank you so much.